we brought a friend with us to my husband's family, and he was meant to be at the Nova Festival. So he decided, instead of going to the festival, to come with us to do this more like religious kind of Shabbat with our family. So that was quite insane, just to, for all of us to find this out together. And as the day went on, it was this kind of waiting to see when my husband would be called for Miluim. My friends' husbands and partners were slowly being called one by one. And, we were just waiting to see when he would be called. He was super sick. So he was kind of like in and out of sleep. And it was just this like really traumatic day of finding things out and figuring out how we would get from the Shomron back to Tel Aviv in this kind of chaos mode. What happened was he did get called back, and we left mid-Shabbat back to Tel Aviv on the roads, which, we were in the West Bank. So it was quite an eerie experience being on the roads it was basically just army vehicles and the Iron Dome being transported, and us racing back to Tel Aviv. And then we got back to Tel Aviv, and it was just people in army uniforms getting on motorbikes, getting in cars, reporting for duty. So we got back. My husband's, Yona's commander said, you have a terrible stomach bug. Come tomorrow morning. It's okay. Rest. We need you a little healthier. So we came back to Tel Aviv. The sirens were going. There was actually, as we got back, there was a rocket that hit 2 streets down from us in Florentine. So there was a lot of noise, and our buildings were shaking, and we kind of packed up our suitcases, and we don't have a bomb shelter in our apartment, in our building. Our building's very old. The stairs aren't safe either. So we had to pack up our bags, run to a friend, and a couple hours later, my husband was gone for the next 4 months. And that was my day of finding this out. It's funny to say I'm lucky, but I'm really lucky. He's in the north. So, right now it's we're waiting to see what happens. But he's in San Khanem. He's a sharpshooter in the paratroopers up north. So he reported, to the Lebanon border, which is where he sat up until a week ago. For now, he's slated to go back in May, but he was just charged around a week and a half ago. So I'm just enjoying having him home after quite a long time. In a way, it's a total shock. And in a way, you feel like you've been low-key preparing for it your whole life. Funnily enough, or disturbingly, like 2 months before he went in, he had a month of Miluim. So he was away for just about a month with his unit before the war. So in a way, I was like, not prepared, but, I feel like he's been preparing for this his whole life. He goes to Miluim every year. He's very close to the people he serves with. It was surreal because you never really expect to be a military wife, but at the same time, you don't question that if there's a war, they're gonna go into Miluim. That's what they do. And I am in a group of friends that quite a lot of us had our husbands, our fiancés, our boyfriends leaving. So there was this sense of like unity amongst us that were kind of left without our significant others. I was actually living with my best friends and like her fiance and 5 other girls that were just kind of taking shelter in this apartment together. For them, they go into this Miluim mode after a couple of days. They're like super strong, super amazing. I could speak to him sometimes and he wasn't with his phone. Those first few weeks was very like every day. We didn't know if we'd hear from him or if we wouldn't. As time went on, it got much easier to communicate. There were a few times that he didn't have his phone. Most of the time he did. I visited him the first time, probably after 2 weeks. I went to take supplies to them because, in the beginning, it was crazy. They had very limited supplies. I'm talking medical supplies like tourniquets and like the most simple, basic things that we raised money for. We got people to smuggle them through, and we went and we supplied pretty much the whole north with all the medical equipment they would need. So I was kind of doing runs with my brother-in-law, and I got to visit him while I was delivering things. So that was nice. My best friend, like I mentioned, and her fiance really harbored a lot of these misplaced people, whether it was our partners leaving or we were just single girls without support. So we kind of all came together in this one apartment. Not that everyone would sleep there every night because there were a lot of us. I'm talking 6 girls and like 5 dogs, right, in a very small space while there's sirens and a lot of adrenaline. And my dog is nearly 60 kilos, so it's like another human. So there was a lot. They were we were all each other's ultimate support, because, you know, even though families trying to be supportive, people around us trying to be supportive, it's impossible to understand the experience you're going through if you're not going through it in real time. I have to shout out to my brother-in-law, who was an absolute support for me as well, who lives in Tel Aviv. It's the only family I had in Tel Aviv, and I would kind of be between him and my best friends. That was my support. My dog is like was my miracle. He was totally calm, miraculously, with the sirens, and would literally like sit on me and like calm me down like a therapy animal. There was the mamad in the apartment, so we didn't have to go down the whole time. It was just like all of us going in one room. I think having a dog throughout this time, you know, I lost my apartment, I lost my husband. The fact that I had this creature with me, even though it was exhausting and really hard because he was in a new environment, it gave me like a sense of something to do, and it was just really comforting for me. I decided to make Aliyah when I was here volunteering during Tzukaitan up north and experiencing this intense sense of community that you only feel in Israel and togetherness. And to be honest, I was getting a bit of Israel fatigue before this war. You know, my husband and I are starting to talk about, you know, maybe what's next. Maybe we go to the US for a year or two. Maybe we just kind of need a break. And I think this experience has definitely fortified my desire to be here. Not that I wouldn't take a year or two, you know, somewhere else, experience something, but my knowledge and feeling like this is my home and I'll always come back here, and I'll always, you know, I want to raise my children here. I feel very much like this is the place I need to be. It's definitely reinvigorated that, even though, you know, it's been anything but easy, and there's a lot of fear of what's to come still in the future. I don't think my skin is any tougher than the next person. I think living in this country, we all have to survive. There's no real choice. I cried more over the last 4 months than I have in all my life together. So I don't feel like I've been very strong. I think what people in Israel do, whether they're Olim or whether they live here, is you carry on. You know, it's strong or not strong. You put one foot in front of the other, and you continue. And I think that's what we're all doing. I don't feel particularly strong at all. I love that. That's how I come across. I'm very glad. That's what I give. That means I'm doing my right. It means I'm doing my job right. And I do just want to say that, you know, I'm not sure if you saw it, but one of my first projects when all this went down was starting a series on CTech, which is the kind of high-tech news outlet in Israel, where me and a partner, Michael Matthias, we would interview a high-tech CEO or founder or VC partner every day and write a story about how they were using their tools, experiences, connections to help in the war. And I think just having that project every day from like the second week of the war was something that really grounded me and that enabled me to kind of get beyond my sadness and my kind of head and bring some kind of light. And that's what I was talking about when I said putting the energy in what I could do around me. That was something that I could do that could bring some kind of light to the circle that I could see and touch and feel. And, you know, I think that was a huge coping mechanism for me, and hopefully gave other people a sense of light as well. It was called Startup Nations United. If anyone wants to check that out, unbelievable, inspiring stories, how people just came together. Breaking points, oh my God, there were so many. I mean, from really like waking up that day, like the second day, and Yona being gone and realizing, okay, I'm kind of in this on my own, and I've been with this man for 8 years. Well, how am I going to do this? To just tremendous sadness, just those first few days walking around Tel Aviv. You know, I have to take my dogs for a walk, and everywhere you go, you see strollers for the children that were taken, and just being confronted so physically with the cruelty and the loss we were going through as a nation, just by like walking downstairs was just kind of hit me every single day. So yeah, I think the first month was just holding so much hurt for the nation, what we were going through. And, you know, I went to a few funerals of friends, families that had passed away in the war as soldiers. And obviously that was terrible, going to shiva houses, all of this, it's so real. I don't think there's anyone in Israel that doesn't know someone that was killed, that was taken, that's injured. So it's just such a personal loss for every single one of us here that, I think every day something's triggering. We interviewed unbelievable organizations. Some that stick out in my mind was like the Children's Fund, which is an unbelievable organization. And by the way, all of these came into life like within days, within weeks. So Children's Fund was to support those children that were now orphaned for the short term, where they're going to live, how they're going to deal with their trauma, to long term, to funds for their bar mitzvahs, for their college. That was one initiative that just blew my mind. There was, things like Social Media for Israel, which was an organization monitoring online fake Hamas accounts and, kind of handling the battlefield online. There was Tikkun Olam Makers, Tom, I'm hoping I get their name right. They do 3D printing, and they were making equipment to help people that, had their limbs cut off or were deeply injured, that now they've been displaced and they need help. They need bathrooms, they need special bathrooms, they need special wheelchairs. And this incredible company was 3D printing tools to help them with all their injuries. So, I mean, this is just like the spectrum. There are just so many, I don't know, we did maybe 30 of these unbelievable organizations. So that was really inspiring to see how the tech community, how the PR community, how, Israel's innovative community could come together to support when it didn't feel like we had so much support, kind of did it grassroots level. I was in a way lucky because I had just kind of started building my business, and while I had a few clients, they were all so understanding of where your energy and priorities had to be at that point. I'm a one-person business, so I can't give responsibility to other people. So I was everything else kind of went to the side, and I fully dedicated to two things. One was collecting money and equipment for my husband's unit, and the second was this Startup United Nations series. From speaking to so many people, it sounded like there's a few lessons that I took for how they prioritized. The one was over communication, communicating to their employees, communicating to their customers, communicating to their stakeholders about the situation, so everyone kind of understood what was happening on the ground. And, I think to be able to delegate, I think I saw through my interviews the ability to delegate different tasks to different people, and so many non-Israelis of startups in Israel took on so much to help with the people that went to Miluim, to reserves. And then just compassion. I really feel like the amount of compassion that was shown within organizations and externally to allow for, all these incredible civil organizations to function. It's just, it's amazing that we live in this kind of country. All of us in Israel, all of us are a little bit broken at all times. Since October 7th. I don't doubt that. I really, really, really feel that. And we will be for a very long time, because even when this ends, please God, there's something broken in us now. I think as a Miluim wife specifically, you're missing your person through a very, very hard, very challenging time where you would love to have that support. These guys that go back to reserves, these unbelievable, incredible men and women who report to reserve duty, they have to make a switch in their mind. They have to make the switch to being back in the army. It's a different mindset. So of all ages and all situations, they really have to have a shift. And that shift stays when they come home, when they go back. They can't, it's not that simple to just turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on. So, and it's our job to be supportive, and it's our job to be loving, and to try give them, as they come home, you want to provide them with a warm meal and a clean home and, all these things. It's just kind of putting your needs aside for the time being, and that brokenness, and just showing up. But I think we're all broken. It's definitely work, It's not just like you can't zip off for 4 months and have totally different traumatic experiences, both living in trauma, but very, very different, and then come back and it just kind of pick up. So I think every single Miluim couple has a road ahead of them, has work to do. And I think that's a positive thing. I think there's opportunities to reconnect in different ways and learn about each other's experiences. A lot of the time, people in Miluim feel like they're sometimes hesitant to share their experiences with their significant other because they don't want them to worry, or just because they don't want to make it harder than it needs to be. So I think coming back, you have to learn how to communicate with each other once again, totally transparently. And there's no tiptoeing. We've been together for eight years. I feel like we kind of say it as it is, but it's also, we want to have fun again. It's like we haven't left the country in a really long time. So now we're figuring out, can we leave? Will he be called back? When can we leave? Do we go visit his family? Do we go visit my family? There's like a lot of questions, especially because, in the back of our minds, it is looming that he will have to go back to Miluim. So there's kind of that sitting there. And it's like you want to make the most of the time you have before they have to go back. All in all, I'm just happy to have him back. And that's definitely the strongest feeling for both of us.